Ramon Ray is a small business evangelist. He's also a best-selling author. He's a speaker. He's an absolute whiz at making technology more easily understood and usable for the small business owner. I've spoken to Ramon a couple of times, and I just find him like the Energizer Bunny. He is enthusiastic. He's passionate. Ramon, welcome to Small Business Smart Solutions. All the best for the new year. Tell me, are you ready to take on 2015?
Thank you for having me on the show, Mick, and I'm going to record that intro so I can play it every morning when I wake up. And yes, I am ready to take on 2015. In fact, I'm even ready for 2016, by the way.
Oh, I thought that might be the case. You're always well into the future. Now, last time we spoke, you used the term Business 101, and I remember the conversation, and it was almost like a throwaway line, and I've been thinking about it ever since. I have been thinking about some other things as well, but I've been thinking about that particular comment, and I think that in the small business community, what we might term Business 101 isn't really as widely understood as we might think it is or what it should be. To me, Business 101 is really that foundation of the skyscraper, and we know that we've got to have a solid foundation to be able to build that skyscraper high. What's your version of Business 101? What are some of the basic things that come to mind when you think Business 101?
Sure. I think there's a few things. There's probably not one thing, unfortunately, or I guess everybody could do it. But I think a few things, Mick, are as follows. I think one overall thinking is, what is the pain point that you're looking to solve? And when I say pain point, Mick, I mean if you take a entertainment park or, like or a museum, something that's fun, the pain point is you're solving boredom. If you take a look at, of course, medicine, you're solving somebody's literal sickness. You're taking a look at selling an office furniture, you're selling, comfort people to sit in. So you get my point. So I think the one thing that Business 101, Mick, is really for business owners to clearly understand what is the problem I'm trying to solve. I'll add a point too, but during the conversation, if you want, we can even add a few more points. But I think a point two I'll ask then is, who are you trying to solve that for? I think those are two things that are fundamentally important when talking about Business 101. Sure, there's marketing and technology and sales and other things that we can touch on if you wish, but I think two bedrock, what are you trying to solve? And I think the second thing is, who are you trying to solve it for? Because if you don't get those two things right, nothing else really matters. If you're trying to sell, ice to ice makers, it doesn't quite work.
So why is that so important? It's something that I think that if you asked most business owners, what is the problem that you're trying to solve, and what are the specifics about the type of person that you're solving this problem for? Because it is a question that I ask a lot in the coaching process. Very few business owners really know the answers to those questions. Why do you think it's so important?
I think it's so important because, and again, we can use this I think is translatable, Mick, to any business. But if you have a business owner, let's take a cupcake business in New York City where I'm sitting right now, Mick, that's a hot, proverbially a hot topic. But my point is, you take a cupcake business, if that person is just making cupcakes because they think it's cool, that's not good enough. Because if you're making it because it's cool, that means that affects, Mick, what type of cupcake you're making. Is it sugar-filled or fat-free? And I could go on and on and on. So I think that's point one. What's the problem you're trying to solve? You're just making something, whether it's a product or service for the sake of it, it's not good enough. Point two, then, going back to the targeting of who the customer is, because then that affects how you make it. So I think that's why it's fundamental. If you're not clear in what the problem you're trying to solve is, you're not going to be clear why people are giving you money. For those who can't spell like me, that's money. And I can't spell, Mick, trust me.
So obviously it's essential to know what you're doing and who you're doing it for. Mm-hmm. What or from a really basic approach, what questions might you suggest a small business owner ask themselves to start to discover the answers to that? Because, like, I'm totally with you. I think it's so important to really understand your target market very, very specifically. because it makes everything else in your business so much more easy to do, I guess, if you understand what that is. What are some of the actions a small business owner can take, or some of the questions they can ask themselves to start to get closer and clearer to what is their target market and what is the problem that they are solving? And I expect that you need to answer that question from your target market's point of view, not your own point of view, because you aren't your customer and you never will be. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Unless, of course, you have as an example, you're a parent, your child's autistic, so you have a special product or furniture item or whatever it may be, again, if you get what I'm saying, for them. So in that case, though, you are your customer in that case, and you can speak for them. But you're right. If you're thinking kind of selfishly, like, ooh, I like pink, so I guess everybody else would like a pink shoe, it's not good enough. So to answer your question, Mick, and you can probably help me articulate this better, and I'll answer it by an example. A friend of mine, father, I think he founded Porsche or worked closely with Porsche, and I don't know the exact terms he used, but I'm sure you can help me better with this. And he said Porsche, or any high-end car, for example, but let's keep it to Porsche, they're not just making vehicles, Mick. They're not just making fast cars. They're making, I think the term was, and maybe you know it, like an experience machine, or we're making a luxury that goes fast. I think you get what I'm trying to say. The point is that, thank you. So you can, when I'm done here, you can make that into English. The point here, Mick, is that the question you should ask are as follows. What is it that people are complaining most about? Meaning, for the product that you want to create, ask that question. What are people complaining most about? 2, what's wrong with what's out there already? 3, how can I make it better? 4, if someone were buying it, what are the big reasons they would buy it for? 5, am I going to make this a premium, meaning this is going to be a high-end product or service that was out there, or am I going to sell just based on price alone, like a commodity? So those are a few things that I would ask if you're creating a product, because I think asking those questions, that translates to anything that you're selling. If you're selling a notebook computer, you can say, oh, we're selling to people who are engineers who are in the Sahara Desert. Therefore, we know this computer we're making must be, built with different specifications. Or if you're a law firm and your special law practice is for the entertainment industry and specifically for singers, that means you can build it directly around the pain points of those particular consumers. Does that make a little bit or a lot of sense, Mick?
It makes a lot of sense, Ramon. And something you said just at the start of that, what are people complaining about? And I thought, well, I've been into a lot of businesses or spoken to a lot of people about businesses where one of the things that they'd be complaining about is the business that they're going into. How important is it to pay attention to that sort of thing? I know that there's a lot of social media around where people will be talking about business and giving their opinion. How important is it, just from a really basic, as you know, what we're talking about today, Business 101 point of view, to be aware and have some form of process to really get clear on what your customers think of your business?
Yeah, and Mick, that is so important. Going back to the Business 101, I can say that I think one of the best things a business owner who's starting out, we're talking to the guys who's starting out now, can do, I think, is get an internship or work for that business. Meaning, I'm sure you hear this, Mick, I'm sure people who use your systems and your processes go through this issue. I'm a great carpenter. I wanted to go into the carpentry business. Mick, it's one thing to make, the best steps and give it to your boss and they sell it. It's quite another thing to go through the whole process of sourcing the wood, making the stairs, selling the stairs, finding the customer, dealing with returns. And that's how you get a real taste of what your customers want. So what you're saying, Mick, is maybe it can even be a third point of this business basics. You now know what the pain point is. You now know who the target customer is. Now you need to, quote unquote, I don't know if they have these things in Australia, Mick, assuming you are from Australia. I don't know if I put my foot in my mouth, but I think you are, yes, is walk a mile in your customer's shoes. Take a look at Uber. I don't know if it has reached you guys over there, Uber? Is it on that side of the world?
Perhaps, but I don't get out much, so.
Okay, you just go on a camel or a sheep somewhere, I guess, and do what you do. But my point is, here in the urban, where there's taxi cabs in cities, what did Uber do? They looked closely at their ideal customer and said, it's not just people want a car. It's not just people need a ride. What the problem we're solving is expectation. And people are tired of talking to cab drivers who may not know English well, talking to cab drivers who are rude and nasty. My point, Mick, like you said, they walked a mile in their customer's shoes and they made a product for exactly to fit that bill. So that was a long answer, but that's exactly what you have to do. Know what your customers want and give it to them.
Do you think that a lot of small business owners tend to be so focused on what they do and how they do it that they almost become self-absorbed and the focus is on how to get the customer to understand from our point of view versus flipping that on its head? Does it make more sense for a success, if you want to have a successful business, to really understand from the customer's point of view and I suppose evolve and modify your business so it suits your ideal customer versus the other way around, which is what I just see that a lot.
And I don't know why more people don't do that. I guess I do know why, because it's harder in a way to put yourself in someone else's mindset. But it's funny. I did some work, Mick, at the United Nations for several years. And we had an office supply vendor come into the office and say, Mr. Ray, or they probably called me dude or something. I can't remember what they called me, but I'll just say Mr. Ray to sound dignified. But they said, Mr. Ray, we can save you like 3% or whatever it was on your office supplies. I said, thank you. I'm just not interested in saving money. For me, it's speed. Yeah, I'm sure it is speed. And our prices are so much cheaper. Thank you. That's great. Oh, great. Thanks for the coupon. Money, those percentage points are not of interest to me. It's speed. Yeah. Okay. So if you buy from us today, we'll give you $2 off. I just said, get the heck out. So because they were so focused on talking in their language, meaning what they wanted. But you're right, Mick. And I think several times in my own business, I've had to kind of slap myself. I don't know if you've done that, Mick, just slap yourself or put your hand over your mouth, because the customer's saying, you know what? Thank you for what you're offering me. Here's what will, in essence, make the sale. Here's what we really want. And smart businesses will listen to that advice, and smart businesses will deliver on that. So you're exactly right. Sometimes you may come out with a product and think this is how we're going to sell it, or this is what the market wants. When in reality, they want something different. I think, Mick, we're not saying, right, that you have to change your business. We're just saying to listen and maybe even deliver it in a new way, if that makes sense.
It makes total sense. Now, folks, I'm chatting with Ramon Ray, small business evangelist and author of multiple books, including the best-selling book, Facebook Guide to Small Business. The show is Small Business Smart Solutions on WebTalkRadio. Now, Ramon, it's important, I think, to always have some sort of a process for your business to make sure that you're maintaining a focus on the fundamentals. One story that I always remember, and you may remember the great white shark, Greg Norman, at the top of his game, was the best golfer in the world at the time. And I always remember a story that he, I think it was in an interview or whatever, he came back to Australia once a year to work with his coach, Charlie Earp, to go through the basics such as the golf stance and the grip and the weight transfer, the absolute starting entry-level fundamentals when you're starting to learn the game of golf. Now, this guy, Greg Norman, was at the top of his game. He was the best golfer in the world at the time, but still came back and had that lesson, if you like, or checked in to make sure the fundamentals were still solid. Have you got any suggestions for the small business owner as to what they might do or what they might measure and put a process together to make sure that their Business 101 basic principles remain solid?
Yeah, no, I think that's very smart, Mick. And, I feel like stopping the show and just hiring you to help me in my business. Like right now, we can just stop the whole show.
Well, we can talk about that. I can send you the price list and all of that sort of stuff after the conversation.
Read my card to you now. But yeah, so I think, and I'll answer it in two ways, Mick. I think there's the basics of business that apply to all businesses. And I think what gets a bit fun is how does that apply to businesses overall? So for the basics of business, Mick, I would say one, is your product of quality or service? Whatever it is, measure that all the time. And I think the English word is fastidious. That's not a word, people. Don't laugh at me too hard, but I think it's a word, fastidious.
It's a real word.
Means, oh, good. Thank you. Okay. my English is bad too. I can't spell my English bad, but be fastidious about that. So your product itself, focus on making sure it's at the best quality you can make it. And again, meaning if you make crappy products, then don't you should be the benchmark, but you know what I mean. Make it the best you can make it. That's one, your products. Two, constantly survey your customers and make sure that you are over delivering, that they are extraordinarily happy with you. So that's your customers. I think three, if you're hiring other people, make sure that, and assuming they're delivering well and they're working for you well and you need them, make sure they're happy. Because you don't want a key employee to leave because you didn't focus on who they were. So I think if you focus on your employees or your people, you focus on your product or service, whatever you're making, you focus then on your customers and that they're happy. I think those are three fundamentals, and there could be more, Mick, of course. But I think those are three basic things. If you get those three things right, you'll be okay. The other thing I would add to that, I think kind of as a matrix, is then look at your specific things that you're doing. For example, Mick, you're a coach. You help businesses grow. You probably have some different metrics maybe than I have. Let's say, for example, in me being an event producer. For me, an event, the key things are your venue, your agenda, your marketing, as an example, or the work I do with Infusionsoft. Attract, sell, wow. So my point is, the secondary to that is every industry, everything you're doing will have some specific basics to it.
Yeah, definitely good advice, Ramon. But I must thank you for being on Small Business Smart Solutions, Ramon. It's always a pleasure and always enlightening, and sure hope to be talking to you again on Small Business Smart Solutions in the not too distant future.
Indeed. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure. You're a lot of fun and informative. Thank you.